Well, I know how hard it is sometimes to get young people excited about reading and writing. If they could be reading and writing about where they lived, that might be the incentive in a way to get them more intrigued about the process. So the books were put together with them and Ingrid Hess, who's a professor at the university. I talked to her a lot about this because she's a children's book author and illustrator.
I was thinking about that this morning, how lucky I am that I work at a university where the upper administration understands the value of doing something with a local school and with kids in the neighborhood. I mean, the chancellor spent a long time here today because she values this kind of activity.
The second graders are the best. You can see how excited they are. We're a public university, we're part of this community. It's really part of our responsibility and mission to help where we can in terms of the community.
I'm hoping at some point when they get discouraged, they'll remember what we did and they'll say, no, I can do it and I can be what I want to be.
Hello, welcome to History in Lowell. I'm Maritza Grooms. I'm joined by my personal professor, aka a living legend. He'll probably hate that I said that. Bob Forrant. Okay. And we're joined by your neighbor, friend, and awesome teacher, Ms Tara Bedard. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yes. I'm so excited that you're here. You guys have been working on something really special and really unique and very crucial to the community over the last school year.
Yes.
So tell us about it.
So Bob is my longtime neighbor and good friend, and I asked him to volunteer, if he would like to come and volunteer, to read to a group of second graders this year, and he willingly jumped at the chance.
Of course.
And of course, all of the kids just fell in love and loved having him read to them, and he got to meet them all, talk to them a little bit about their backgrounds, and help a little bit or oversee a writing assignment that we were doing that day. And so after that, I can't remember, I think you had come back a few times before we decided to focus on the area of writing, but after that we thought, why not have the writing kind of switch to what we were working on and make it be about Lowell, about their neighborhoods, because we spent quite a bit of time talking about their neighborhoods and the different sections of Lowell that they were from, and they were super excited to start writing about Lowell. It started with a little homework assignment about what you love about your neighborhoods. Right. I think right before Christmas or right before the holiday break.
And Bob gave them that homework.
And he gave them that homework
assignment. He's so good
assignment.
at giving homework that you actually want to do.
Yes, that vacation homework. But they all did it, and they all came back. He assigned 5 things, and I thought maybe we'll take between 3 and 5. And so they all came back with between 3 to 5 things about things that they loved about their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Which were really special, connections to people and playgrounds and gardens and neighbors, stores that they absolutely loved going into weekly or daily to buy what they needed with their family. So it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah.
And it really took off, and it's been wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the fascinating thing was and I was talking to somebody about this the other day at the university, and I said, if this had been all planned in the beginning, if the principal, which he did not, but if he had said, well, I need a plan or something like that, I probably wouldn't have done it because that's not me per se.
I noticed.
Not after decades of teaching.
and so, right, but I mean, I understand why, like the need for, but at the university, it's not something, like I'm not leaving something behind in case somebody has to fill in for me or something like that, you know, and a standard or whatever. But in this case, it just sort of evolved, and I appreciated that you went with it.
Yeah.
And we just sort of, but I was fascinated by personally how excited the students were, second graders, about talking about where they lived.
Yeah.
It was just really, you know, it was eye-opening in a way to see through their eyes, what they observe, and some of their perspective as they have pictures of buses driving over the bridge, and they're kind of going over the top of the archways of the bridge and things. I mean, it's the way they see the city, and so I thought, well, this is really cool. And they were, so in November, I remember I came before Thanksgiving, and you were doing the assignment with the boxes.
Yes.
Making
Yes,
buildings
we
and
do
things.
a STEM project, an engineering project, on that half day before Thanksgiving every year, and it's always a different theme. So they have to build something out of recycled materials, and they all get together and work in teams. And so this year they were trying to build the tallest structure that they could. And so I asked Bob if he wanted to come and help. So he came in to complete chaos. I mean, my normally organized, neat room was just utter, there were things everywhere. All of the recycled materials that we had saved since we decided to do the project, and they just got together, and they had no idea what it was going to be about beforehand. We gave them like a couple of days notice, and so he came in and helped work with teams. They built skyscrapers, they built robots. Really, they had a really fun time, and he just connected with the kids in such an easy way that we were happy to have him anytime that he came in, and the kids were too. I was saying
and
earlier,
he was too.
Of course, he was too. And this is something that they don't always get to do. You know, it was a really nice opportunity, and my principal is wonderful, and he allowed it and supported it and grew it right along with us, which, you know, that's not always the case.
One of the things I loved the most, and there's some photographs of it that you took that are in black and white, which are really actually my favorites.
Yes.
I brought one day this old atlas of Lowell from 1910, I think, and I bought them all little magnifying glasses, and they could go through the maps and find their neighborhood and where they lived. And so Tara had talked to them before I was going to come back about making sure they knew the street address and everything. And then it turned out that you were working, I remember you had been working with them on indexes.
Yes.
In books, and to use the atlas you had to use an index.
Yes.
So it just lined up that it was like being reinforced that they had to find their street in the index, and then next to their street was the page in the atlas where they would find their street. So they had to be little detectives and trying to, and they were like, I thought, I don't know if this is going to work, but they went crazy with it. I mean, they were really into it. It was just really, again, it was like, okay, if I had thought about, okay, maybe we'll do this and have it all planned out, who knows, right? But it definitely...
It was very smooth. We had just finished up a unit on nonfiction text features.
Wow.
So they had to go in and do something similar throughout that whole unit, where they had to find the index, table of contents, photographs, captions, headings, and point those out and know exactly what they meant and why we use them in nonfiction text. So when Bob ever came in and said, I want you to find the index, they all knew where it was, and they were so excited to use it. And he was like, "This is second grade. This is amazing."
Wow,
so
the
we kind of let them
synergy.
just go on their own with the map for a little bit, and oversaw the whole thing, where they had to kind of figure out where their street was. And some of them had an easy time.
Right.
Some of them had a really difficult time because it looks so much different now.
Yeah.
But they all were able to do it. And they hung on to those magnifying glasses until the last day of school.
Of course they did.
Every single child still had their they would use it for reading, they would use it for independent reading throughout the day. I had one student lose one, and of course he had extras, so that was fixed quickly. But it was just a really cool start to what ended up being an amazing project.
And you know, it's so relevant to what we do here on the show, because it's my understanding that you have a really diverse group of young people in your class who are all from different backgrounds and live in all different parts of Lowell. And that's what we talk about here, the whole immigration story. And I think you had a really special case that came in. We
do have a lot of newcomers that arrive to the McAuliffe School every year throughout the entire school year, almost all the way up until the very end. I got a little girl from Uganda, Hannah, who showed up about a month ago, really, at this point, and we had been so far underway in the project, and she really didn't even really know where to start, so we got her started, and she did so well, honestly, with very little support, because she came from an English-speaking school. She had been learning so much. She fit right into where we were, and she was super independent. I mean, this is a child who traveled from Uganda to Dubai to Boston. I think I was talking to you about it.
Oh yeah, and I got to meet her.
And I met her mom. And she's just very independent. But she was one of the most appreciative, I think, of the project, and adored Bob so much, and just would thank him any chance she would get. She would say, "Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for teaching me."
And she got up and read at a special event that the project culminated in
downtown Lowell, Lala Books. She just was so brave to do that. And, so we have so many students like that just come from such challenges and such struggles, and the school itself is just a very welcoming, warm place of family. And I just feel like we've always been like that. I've been teaching for 25 years. I've been there for 22 of those years.
Wow.
And it's just gotten better and better every year. And it's difficult, but we make it work, and we have such great support. Like I said, like our administration has been wonderful throughout this whole process, and even came to the book party and said some really kind words about us together working on it. So
of course, and that was such a special event, like seeing their faces, the joy, even Bob riding on the bus with them.
That was one of the highlights. They were so excited about Bob riding the bus. And so we talk a lot about memories and takeaways from the year, and even up to yesterday was the last day of school, and I said, or Wednesday was the last day of school, and I asked them on the way out, I said, can you whisper to me what was one of your favorite memories? At least 10 of them said Bob, which is it's so important, and it's so touching.
Right.
And it just speaks volumes to, Bob as a teacher, as a professor, and they were fascinated with that. They one of their questions for him, we always did top 10 questions for Bob, and one of the questions was, how long have you been a teacher? And you had to think about it. They made their own guesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, for me, again, it was interesting to think about, okay, I think of myself as a teacher, but sort of second graders is obviously a different kettle of fish. What was really funny was some of the days, I don't think you knew, but some of the days I would be in your class in the morning. With second graders in the afternoon, I would drive to a retirement village where I also give talks and teach history.
Oh my gosh, I did not know
and
that.
so in the morning I would be with, second graders, 6, 7, 8 years old, and in the afternoon I would be people in their 80s and 90s.
Yes.
And it was just like, okay, the whiplash of but a story's a story, right? And if you're a storyteller, which I feel like I am in a way, you figure it out. But it was just like, I was thinking about what other job could I have? Where this is what I would do in the morning and this is what I would do in the afternoon, and at night I would think about, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow morning in my actual class? And so I think that the bookstore party, again, was one of these things where the graciousness of Lowell, it always pops up in in these ways, right? Because at Lala, the owner was a former teacher. And I was talking to her one day about what I was doing, and talking about the books, and she said, "Oh, we should have a book party."
So kind.
Not something I was thinking about per se. I was thinking we should do something nice at the end, but I wasn't thinking let's go to a bookstore.
Right.
And then I came back.
I wasn't thinking that either.
I bet.
I was a little bit nervous, but they pulled it off. And they were they're a great group of kids anyway, but you worry about taking 25 7-year-olds to a bookstore in downtown Lowell.
Oh yeah.
This beautiful bookstore that's set up just so wonderfully. And I said to Laura that day, I said, I feel like I could live here. It's just
I
amazing.
practically do.
I don't want to leave. I went in today. I stopped in today before I came. But they were so wonderful, and they were so well behaved. And
they
so
were
appreciative of us being able, or Bob and Laura being able to pull that off for them. I feel like that they were just in awe the entire time and just so excited. And then the UMass Lowell piece as well, I mean, they went above and beyond for these kids and giving them bags of goodies. And
and they got 2 special guests there.
Yes,
the Chancellor
that
and
was wonderful. And she spent the whole time.
And Rowdy.
You can't forget Rowdy. They've met Rowdy a few times. Because luckily we have a few UMass Lowell connections. We are pen pals. I might have mentioned this too. We are pen pals with the athletes, with the student athletes at UMass Lowell. So we've been doing that for a couple of years, and they got to write to college athletes all year long, back and forth. And then we finally met them over at the rec center in April and had a little get together all day long. So we're lucky enough to be able to have some strong connections there.
I mean, that's also a testament to you as a teacher, that these young people were able to come into this awesome place and be so well behaved and be so gracious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In kindergarten, they were on Zoom. They started
I
their
can't even imagine
education
that.
learning through a computer. And kindergarten in itself is so difficult, and you need so many concepts, and you need to be in person for so many things. And a lot of them, couldn't pull it off. They just couldn't do it, whether or not it was a struggle at home for families to get them on the computers.
Right.
So kindergarten on the whole was really, really tough for everybody. And then first grade was the first time they came back to school. So we saw a lot of behaviors, a lot of challenges. Where even am I? You know, this is the
I'm
first
still
time I've
adjusting.
ever been still. And then, so this year was finally officially the full return where everything was normal and structured, and they were able to just get such a great year out of it. And then on top, to have such a special treat. I feel like they were so lucky that I'm like, wow, can we pull this off again?
What was crazy too, right? Maybe the second time I went, I wore 2 different socks. And I didn't think this was going to be like this. I thought, well, what'll happen? Maybe they won't even notice.
Yes.
They noticed.
They noticed everything.
They noticed right away, right? And so I realized at that point, okay, I could never not up the sock game week by week as I went, because the first thing they would say when I walked in the room. And then in all their artwork, many of them would somewhere hide a pair. They would draw a pair of socks, but
it's like
hide
they understand the concept of Easter eggs, like their work.
Yes.
And even in some of the pages of their books, which had nothing to do with what they were writing, somewhere they would put, if I looked really hard enough, I could find there's a pair of socks hidden away somewhere.
Yes. Right before the vacation, we bought everyone in the class a pair of silly socks. Yes. And they wore them right up until the last day of school. They were still wearing socks, even though it was 95 degrees in the classroom. And most kids were in flip-flops or sneakers with no socks. They were still wearing their socks.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And they dedicated, a lot of them dedicated their books to Bob.
That was a little trend that took off too. We had 2 students who were talking and working together as a team about who they wanted their dedication page to be.
Yeah.
And a few kids said their families, some said Mr. Anderson, one said me, but then these 2 kids said Bob, and then word kind of got around the classroom, and I think every book was dedicated to Bob.
I love that.
But the pictures, they drew pictures of themselves with Bob, and they're really talented artists.
They really are.
I mean, 7-year-olds are great artists, but this crew especially, I feel like they just had a knack for art.
And they've been on the wall. They're still on the wall over at Lala Books.
Yes.
The artwork from the book party day.
They had a beautiful display set up when we walked in.
Which is really amazing.
I just brought her a new round this morning. Nice. It was all watercolor paintings that they did of sea life. And so when it arrived in my classroom in a pile, I said, we should give these to Lala Books to thank her for hosting our party. She would be looking for new artwork. If anybody wants to take it home, you can. You don't have to. No one took it home. Everyone wanted to give it to her, so I just dropped off a pile there for her.
Like, where else can you get that level of community engagement?
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? At every sort of. Yeah. I mean, the other thing was that Ingrid Hess, who you know, professor at the university. That was one of the first books I read, Mr. Magnificent's Marvelous Magical Adventure or something. Kyson knows the title better than me.
He does.
But anyway, that was one of the first books I read. And again, in some of their artwork, they drew a balloon, because the balloon is the feature of that book. He's flying over Lowell back in the early 19th century, and there's kids in the basket with him, and he's pointing out the history of the city. And so I thought, maybe I would see if she would come in to talk to them about covers for their books when we got to that point. And of course she said yes, and so she came one day, and that was really interesting too, because she's obviously a trained artist who does illustrate and write kids' books. Yeah. And so she got a big kick out of working with those kids, and a lot of them, you know, later wrote things about her as well and did artwork for her too. So yeah, again, it was the community in that sense of other people in the history department. So it was kind of, my colleagues in the history department think I'm weird sometimes. Like, why are you doing something with 2nd graders, you know? But I said, well,
it keeps you young.
Yeah,
it's exhausting. Yeah, I bet. But it keeps you young.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I always when I leave each time, I sort of shake my head and think, there's no way I could do this all day, every day. I don't know how you and your colleagues, you know, it's such a hard, I don't think we ever fully appreciate like how hard that you all have to work. I mean, my job's, by comparison, I feel like my job's easy. Yeah. Right? I mean, I never have to send anybody to the principal.
Right.
I never have to have anybody, you know, leaving because they're acting up in some way.
Right.
I don't, it's just such a different, and it's like an hour and 15 minutes, and then they go away.
Yeah.
It's not 5.5 or 6 hours.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just, I mean, partly which is also partly why I did it. I feel like the more I can understand those sorts of things, the better I am as a human.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, it was also I mean, what was fascinating was I had been really ill all last summer, and I was on a leave of absence in the fall. And so this really was my like outlet.
Yeah.
For a while, this was like my like place I could go.
Your comeback.
Have
You
a
can't
good
keep
time.
Bob out of a classroom.
Right.
Yeah, no, and it felt really okay. I can do this hour and 15 minutes or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and it's right in the neighborhood, and this will work. And so it was really it was like an elixir in a way to be going and like, you know, getting the energy from all of them, and having such a good time. So yeah, it couldn't have been better. But the books themselves, I had no idea. I don't know if you had any expectation.
I wasn't sure where they were going to end up with the books. I knew that they did their homework and they were so excited to share their things that they loved about their neighborhood. So that was our start. That was our starting point. But their writing improved, their handwriting improved, leaps and bounds. And they ended up, honestly, and it's funny to even think about it because you think they've missed so much, you know, and we had to just catch them up to get to this point. But it was the most beautiful handwriting that I've seen in years of doing this. And you know, they just came from such struggle starting in kindergarten and not really getting to learn that physically unless their family was doing it with them at home because it's so difficult through a computer screen.
And who knows what barriers were going on.
Right, so many.
Beyond the computer
so
screen,
many,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
So it's honestly like, to think about it, you know, we just saw so much growth in this project that I thought, okay, how am I going to fit this in and with everything else that we have to do? But I'm so glad that we did, and I'm so grateful that we did, and I know that they are too. And Bob just became just a staple at the McAuliffe school. I mean, everybody knows Bob. Our secretary, who's retiring, she said to me the other day, she said, "I'm going to miss Bob." I said, "Everybody's going to miss Bob."
Right.
He'll be back. You won't be back, but he'll be back.
My treat was waiting when I got there each morning that I went, because you would send a couple kids. I never knew who was going to come.
Oh, right. They would be the greeters. And they would beg to go greet
course
Bob.
they would.
And so I would just sit waiting and then wonder who's coming down the hall, and then chat with them all the way back up into the. I learned about one of them got a telescope for Christmas and all sorts of, you know, where they're going on summer vacation and all sorts of things. How many brothers and sisters I mean, it was just this really interesting sort of dynamic, which just. Again, I've done reading in like, even when my kids were small, I would go into their school as well and read, but I never did such an extended project. And again, this just kind of worked.
Right, it just kind of took off.
You didn't think this was going to happen when you said come read.
No, and I didn't.
I don't think you were that clever that you stuck me in.
Never, no. I had hoped, we always love for people to come and volunteer to read because that's one of the kids' favorite things. And it gets old over time when it's the same person doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we had you in on Read Across America Day.
And
that was the first special day, and then it just took off from there. And never did I think that this amazing project would come out of it. So it's kind of cool that it was so smooth and so easy, and never did I feel stressed about it. You know, I just thought, hey, we're making this work. This is what we're doing, and we're going to get it done. Towards the deadline at the end of the year, a little bit, because we had some kids who had been absent, and, you know, they missed different pieces of the writing, but we got them caught up, and I had a great team of teachers that come in and out of my classroom all day that have supported us with this project too, and they were just wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I felt stressed. The day we went to pick the books up.
Oh.
I got out in the parking lot with the box and I said, let's count them before we leave.
Oh.
Ingrid Hess was with me. And there were 22.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, no, there should be more.
Oh my goodness.
And thank God, right? Because otherwise, we would have driven away.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I had to take the list out that I had of all the kids' names.
That's me every day.
Well, then I was you that afternoon sitting in the Staples parking lot over by Stop and Shop.
Oh my gosh.
And checking everybody off and seeing which ones weren't there.
Yeah.
And then went back and said, where are the other three?
Yes.
Because we had given them everything.
Everyone had their things in a folder. We tried to keep it as organized as possible.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And we scanned it. We had to scan all the pages.
Wow.
So much work went into the end.
To bring it over to them.
Yeah.
And so we knew that we had 25 PDFs of all the books. And okay, where's the other books? Oh. And I'm thinking, imagine like the kids walk in and there's like three, they're looking around, where's my
for their own book.
God.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't even know why in my brain when I got in the car, so before we leave, let's
Oh, always.
Good thing.
Always.
Yeah.
Let's count.
I'm always counting papers, books, binders, kids themselves. Yeah, that's a lot of kids to count. This has been the biggest class that I've had in a few years.
Wow.
It usually runs right around 21, 22.
Yeah.
You know, years ago it was higher up, closer to 30, 27, 28, with like no support at all. But the support is great this year, and we just kept getting newcomers, which is amazing for them, you know, and they've had such a great experience, and I love that they're here at the McAuliffe with us, because I think it's the best school in Lowell.
Well, I mean, it has one of the best teachers in Lowell, obviously.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, and the kids, I mean, the neighborhood part of it, they got. I mean, when you look at their drawings, they really were thinking about, I mean, the physical nature of the city, the different kinds of stores and markets that they go to. Some of them put in things about restaurants that they went to. The river plays a big role for a lot of them. Also, the mill buildings.
Yeah, that one kid who drew the mill.
Yes, he lives in Mass Mills.
Yeah.
Yes.
The bricks were.
He loves to draw. This was such a great project for him because he loves to draw. And not a huge fan of the writing piece, but I feel like it just tied together for him. So he was excited to do the writing to match the illustrations. We let him start with the illustrations first, and then he knew he had to write about it. So it was just
leading with what the kids passionate
absolutely.
about. Yes.
And then he slipped in when you were the atlas the huge atlas that I left at the school. I was getting back, and kids wanted to look at it one more time, and Tara, out of the corner of her eye, saw the Kyson slipping in a piece of art.
A watercolor painting that he did.
Without saying anything.
Oh, so beautiful.
Secret gift for Bob.
So beautiful.
It's on my refrigerator.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's a bird.
It was a
and it's on
bird.
my
It was
refrigerator.
absolutely gorgeous.
Really, this incredible shade of blue. And it's
Yeah.
now on my refrigerator. And I said, okay, like you're slipping things in.
Yes. Oh,
Atlas?
yes.
Right.
This is pretty cool. This is pretty crazy.
I mean, and it's history in the making. Like, everything that we talk about, your story and how important it is, and telling that story. And Bob knows how to coax a story out of a person. You know, like you do the oral histories project with pretty much everybody I think you come into contact with.
More or less. They don't realize they've told me a secret.
Yeah. I love that. And he mentioned doing that with his college students, and this is kind of where he came up with this idea. And we don't ever get to do that. You know, I get to meet the kids and I get to build relationships with them from the beginning, but it's so busy throughout the day, and there's so many of them that you don't really get to connect in that way all the time, where you are really learning more about where they're coming from and what neighborhood they live in. Like, I know their streets, but I don't know outside of that, you know, what's going on? What do you love about it? What do you maybe not like about it? But they were able to come up with quite a few things that they loved about Lowell. And so that, to me, I mean, I've born and raised here and went through Lowell schools, and my kids as well. They went to the McAuliffe too, so it's just cool to be able to see them connect with their own history, and know that it's such a huge piece of where they are coming from and where they're going in life.
Exactly. And maybe like 20 years from now, we can have one of those students return.
I know.
Because their stories are published.
Yes.
And we can say, hey, bring your book that you did in Ms Bedard's class with Bob and Ingrid. Come on the show and talk about how your life has changed and how you've contributed to Lowell's history.
They would love that.
20 years, you'll be here.
I might still be here.
I'm going to try to keep you around for as long as possible.
You will.
I don't know. I'll be with a walker.
That's all right.
Well, thank you both for the incredible work. Obviously, like, I'm a fan of Bob, but it's so awesome to see other fans of Bob in the community, and now you've got fans of all ages, literally.
Honestly, yes.
But thank you so much for the intentional hands-on learning, because our students can only be better with amazing people like the two of you. So thank you for that. And thank you to the young people who work so hard on this project. Shout out to Ingrid and Lala.
Yes.
We love you guys. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. This has been History in Lowell.